with Mr. Sean Forney, comic book writer and artist, who has a Kickstarter that he's currently running. He's got 10 more days to go. So we're doing this interview and we're doing it live to make sure that we get the information out there for everyone. So thank you for taking the time to sit down with me this evening.
Thank you for having me on. Thanks for taking the time to do this.
Oh, of course. So, let's just start out with a kind of general question. What was it that, in your life that initially got you interested in comics?
Being a kid, I was watching cartoons from like the very beginning, basically. I grew up at the right time. He-Man was on TV, Spider-Man, His Amazing Friends, all that kind of stuff that grabbed my attention really quick as a kid. And one time going to the corner drugstore with my dad, I discovered comic books when my dad was looking at like car magazines. They were on the same shelf, the same rack in the drugstore. And I picked up my first comic. It was a Marvel Comics Presents, like a re-release of a earlier Spider-Man issue. And like after I got that, I was hooked. And a little bit later on, when I was, I think, like third, fourth grade, somewhere like that, I, through friends at school, discovered that there was actually a comic book store close by to where we lived, and started a pull list. And then I was definitely hooked from then on.
Nice. Yeah, we I think a lot of us got that start where you find one sitting there, then it's you get the one, and then you discover another one. I know for me, like I would get comics when I was a kid, when I would go to air shows and stuff with my dad, and go to antique stores, and my parents would be looking for stuff and be like, oh, look at comics in the in like boxes that they had tucked in the corners, or getting stuff at the grocery store. And like when I discovered there was a store in my town that just sold comics, it was a game changer.
Yeah, that's, like I said, that's what definitely got me hooked. I just all hit at the right time. And my parents were supportive of like, hey, yeah, we can make the weekly or every other week trip to the comic book store, pick up books, that kind of thing. And the same kind of thing. It was like I think there was one corner drugstore that always had some sort of rack of comics, and one of the grocery stores in town for a little while had comics. So it was like anytime we make a trip in there, it'd be like, okay, I'm just gonna get dropped off here, read through some books, and then mom and dad go do the grocery shopping or whatever.
Yeah, I used to carry a backpack around with me everywhere I went as a kid, like when I would have to go to the store with my mom or the mall or car rides or anywhere, and just have a stack of like old comic back issues I'd gotten out of these boxes in antique stores, and wherever we went, I was just pulling issues out and reading them. So yeah, anything to keep from being bored while mom was clothes shopping.
Yep. I did pretty much the same. There was a lot of times like growing up where I would like, my dad owned his own business. So it was like, if there was like a snow day or something like that, it was, I was going off to work with dad, and we'd stop somewhere and like, okay, here, get something to occupy yourself for the day, and, grab a comic book or two off the rack, and, keep me entertained for a good portion of the day. And then the rest of the day would probably be spent doodling in like a notepad or something that he had laying around.
Yeah. So, what was it that had you moved from being a comic fan to deciding that you wanted to work professionally in the industry?
Along with like reading the comic books, watching cartoons and stuff, I was drawing basically from when I could hold a crayon or whatever. And that was always something I did to kill time, have fun, whatever. And I think it was either seventh or eighth grade, somewhere in junior high, reading Wizard magazine, and they had an article about how you break into the comic industry. And like the light bulb went off of like, ooh, I can do this for a job and get paid to do it, and all these things. And so it was like, that was kind of like where it was like, made the decision like, okay, I'm going to pursue this. How do I pursue it? Got most of the starting information here. And when I was in high school, I started actually putting together like samples, sending them off, trying to get portfolio reviews and things like that.
So what was it? What was your first professional gig in comics?
First professional gig was like this really small, like super small press, super independent local creator, and I think he was in the Columbus area. I met him at a Michigan show actually. Showed him my portfolio at the con, and he's like, "Okay, I got all these ideas I want to do." He's like, "I'll pay you something ridiculously stupid of like maybe $10 a page or something like that to draw a short little story." And so I did. I did. It was an old Jack London story. It was a short story. I'm blanking on the name of it right now, but he had me basically turn that into a comic book.
Cool.
So that was the very first thing I did.
All right, and that's seen looking on your website for anybody that wants to check him out online. It's pretty simple. It's SeanForney.com. It's there's a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff to check out. Oh, there's a lot of stuff to check out on there. You got links to your current Kickstarter, which we're going to get into a little bit. You've got link for your art, for commissions, for covers you've done, for all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, we tried to cover a little bit of everything on there to give people a sampling of the variety of stuff I've worked on over the years.
All right. Oh, looks like we got a question from our own Tim Morse, or a comment. Said, yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on the CodeX station.
Well, hey, thank you. Thanks for having me and getting this all set up and everything.
Yeah. So anyone else out there that's watching, if you have any questions for Sean while we're doing this, go ahead and pop them in the chat, and I'll put them up there for him. So, anyways, I was saying as I looked at your site, I saw a lot of your work. That you've done these covers and pinups for a lot of well-known properties. You did a cover for Vanish. I saw stuff on there for Lady Death, for Vampirilla, for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Bloodstrike, Pooh Bear, Thundercats. How did all of those gigs come your way?
The majority of them came about with working with Murat Michaels. I met him about 10 or so years ago at San Diego Comic-Con. I went to go drop off my portfolio to Rob Liefeld, and Rob had left for the day, and Murat was still at his table, and he was right next to him. And at the time, it was like, oh, I knew they had worked together. And that was about the extent of it. So I just went up and asked if Rob was coming back, if he was gone for the day or whatever. And he was like, yeah, he already took off, whatever. He's like, I don't know, I asked if he could help me with something or something like that. And I said, well, I wanted to drop off portfolio. He was looking for a colorist. I've got samples here. And he's like, well, the same guy that left him left me. Let me see what you got. So I handed over my samples, and he's like, yeah, I've got some stuff for you. And like shortly thereafter, he and I started working together. And now, 10 years later, we've done literally thousands of covers of the various Pooh books with Do You Pooh, All Out Pooh, and the rest of their titles. And through doing the work with him, he is great about anybody that he works with. He will go to bat for you, throw your name out when anybody's looking for somebody. So a lot of the other work that I got, especially like the Lady Death stuff that you mentioned, came through us working together, getting my work in front of Brian Polito. And Brian and I talked again at San Diego Comic-Con a few years ago, and he's like, yeah, I'd like to work with you. And we've had a pretty good run of stuff over the last couple of years doing various covers, and I've been doing their they call them handcrafted covers.
Mm-hmm.
When they're running their Kickstarters, they will do a black and white printed edition of one particular cover out of the various covers they offer during the Kickstarter. It's usually like their top tier artist for that Kickstarter, and they will send me like 20 of these books, and I hand color each one. So it goes into this very large package that they offer in the Kickstarter. And I've done, I think, 6 so far, and I've got the 7th one. It looks like it just shipped and is on its way to me. Um, and with some of the other stuff you mentioned, like the Vampirella, Vanish, Thundercats, couple of those were retailer incentive covers that I did for a local retailer, or they were my own retailer incentive cover. I worked with Dynamite to do the Vampirella and the Thundercats because I grew up on Thundercats, and it was like I need to do this. So when the opportunity came up, it was like, yes, I'm going to find a way to make sure this happens. I want to do something with Thundercats. So I did that just very recently. That came out beginning of February, I think. So it was like something I had to jump on and do.
So you said you did that as your own retailer exclusive. So do you have your own shop? How exactly do you set that up? By contacting Dynamite and saying, "Hey, I want to do a variant cover for this book."
So my local shop, we had done a Red Sonja Vampirella cover a couple years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and the local shop put me in touch with them, so we had already kind of connected that way. And basically, I saw a couple of my friends were doing the same kind of thing, where it's basically an artist exclusive. You're not going through a shop or going through any other means. It's working directly with them. So basically put me in contact, and I will get sent a list of like, here's what's coming out, what do you want to tackle. And that when that one hit, when I saw the announcement that they were doing it, I was just anticipating and sitting there waiting, going, when are they going to send that email? And I got it, and that's when I hit them up, and I was like, yes, I want to do this thing. So yeah, I don't have like a retail store or anything like that. It's just they do make it available for artists that want to go that venture and do the exclusive and all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty cool to have it, and it's like the only way you can get it is directly through me. So it's makes for a good thing for conventions and doing like whatnot sales, Facebook Live sales, things like that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. You said for doing all this stuff for colorists that send you stuff. What tools do you use for that?
Primarily Photoshop.
Mm-hmm.
I've been working with Photoshop since I was in college. So like 2001, I think was when I first picked up Photoshop, started using it. So yeah, like 23 years of trying to figure the ins and outs of using the program and stuff. Um, that's my usual go-to when I'm working on stuff. If I'm like doing a cover like the Thundercats cover, for example, I go back and forth from digital to traditional tools. So I'll start my layout digitally so I can move stuff around, figure out my layout, get stuff the way I want it. Then I'll do pencils and inks traditionally, typically anyway, and then I'll jump back into using Photoshop. But when I'm drawing, doing sketches, or sometimes I ink digitally, I use combination of Procreate and Clip Studio Paint. So it's bounce around between all of them to get the end product.
Cool, cool. And you mentioned having the books that you have with you as con exclusives. Tim just asked, can we catch you at any cons this year? I know we discussed that before the interview, so you want to go ahead and tell people now what conventions you have coming up so they can keep an eye out for you.
Sure, sure. So I'll be at C2E2 next weekend, April 26th to the 28th, I believe are the dates. Then June, end of May, beginning of June, I'll be at Colossal Con, which is in Sandusky, Ohio. Um, Mid June, I will be at Garden State Comic Fest in New Jersey, and then in July, I will be at San Diego Comic Con. I will be in Artist Alley, and somehow we got really lucky. And my wife, who writes and does most of the rest of the work on putting out our Scarlet Huntress book, she will actually be set up in small press. So we'll have 2 locations for folks to come track us down out there.
All right. Well, the guy that originally contacted you, Sonny, lives over there, and usually goes to C2E2 each year. So, like Tim said, we'll send Sonny your way.
Excellent, excellent. It'd be nice
Oh,
to meet him in
here's
person.
Sonny himself.
Oh,
So
nice.
that's your that's going to be your mission next weekend, Sonny, is to go catch up with Sean at C2E2. But So was gonna say, so you've done your your Kickstarter stuff we're gonna get to in a minute. You've done all this independent stuff. Have you ever tried broaching trying to work for Marvel or DC? Now I saw on your website that you have a lot of the Marvel sketch cards, but have you ever submitted stuff or tried to get any gigs working with Marvel or DC themselves?
I did. It's been a while ago. Once I started getting some of the work I've gotten, it's just kind of one of those things that's trying to find time to put the stuff together to go after something like that. In addition to like doing the sketch cards, like you mentioned, I've actually done a Spider-Man children's book. It was back around 2008, 2009. Actually worked on that. Um, and DC, they did a transmetropolitan thing for Comic Book Legal Defense Fund, I believe it was. So I worked with two friends on it. It was Tim Seeley, I believe, did the layout, and my buddy Josh Metters did like the finishes on a piece, and I did the colors. So we did like it was basically like a big oversized art book that raised money for Comic Book Legal Defense Fund, but it was all, as far as I know anyway, put together by DC at the time.
All right. So, we've mentioned the Kickstarter. So, the reason you're on here is to promote your current Kickstarter. So it's for a project called Heroes, Villains, and Cryptids Volume 1. So what can you tell us about that? There's 10 days left to go. So what can you tell us about that book?
It's an 84-page art book. So it is everything from rough sketches to fully finished like cover pieces or full color sketch covers. We compiled like artwork out of various folders on my computer from 2018 up until recently. I basically just started pulling files of scans of stuff or finished files of stuff I've worked on, put them all in one giant folder, and then my wife sorted them out that we have enough right now. If this thing goes over well enough, we've got enough to do 3 volumes of this art book.
Wow.
And one of our stretch goals, actually two of the stretch goals, are to add, I think, an additional 6 pages, and it's on there twice. We can end up adding up to 12 pages of this book if we reach those goals. But we've unlocked the bookmark, which has a Mothman illustration on it. The next stretch goal is a book plate, which will be a print of the cover, one of the covers. So we're working on trying to get the word out, try to unlock that goal if we can, and we tried to keep the packages pretty simple. There's a version of each cover available in a different binding, so you got your choice of a perfect bound or square bound, however you want to refer to it, a spiral bound, and then a hardcover. And we decided to leave it up there. It was supposed to be a 72-hour limited thing where you could buy all 3 books and get a discount, which is basically buy 2 get 1 free. But when we set up the timing and stuff, we weren't close enough to the campaign to actually set the end date, so it still kept running. So there's still a few copies left where you can buy it that way. So if you scroll on there and see that deal, take advantage of it if you want all 3 covers. There are 3 different covers, but the interiors are all the same, so everybody knows it's not 3 different books that are available there. And then we also made available our Scarlet Huntress stuff. You can add those on at the add-on stage once you pick your particular pledge level or whatever. I think that covers everything that's in there. Like I said, we tried to make it pretty short and sweet as to what's available. It's like, here's the art book, here's a couple things to add to it, and you're good to go.
Nice. I'm on, actually got a tab open here, just looking at it again now. I looked at it earlier. So you've done this is your 6th Kickstarter, and I saw they've all been successful. And and this one it's already double what your goal was. So what was it that made you decide to go to Kickstarter, to publish your books?
When we started out, the first one we did was 2012, I believe. Um, we've been working on our Scarlet Hunters book since 2003, basically. It started off as something I got asked to contribute to an anthology book. My wife and I created the character, came up with a storyline, and we did two short stories to begin with, doing the anthology thing. Uh, and we got asked to put together a first issue, like a one and done thing, and we did. And stuff happened with the publisher we were working with. Whatever, we decided to self publish it. And when we started, there was like, I think, two print on demand printers that were around at the time. And at that stage, like, it was still kind of pricey to do print on demand. And uh like, there wasn't anything readily available to get files to the printer. I literally had to burn everything to a CD and ship a CD off to
Oh
them to get
wow.
them files. So give me an idea how long ago it was and all the process that went into it. And we did that first full issue, and we finally put it out in 2006. Um, and we wanted to do another book, but it was always kind of one of these things where it's like, okay, it cost a lot to just print the things, but also costs a lot because I got to take time out of my schedule to work on it.
Hmm.
So it took a while. So we didn't do the second issue until I think 2009, because it was the first year going out to San Diego Comic Con. I set up in small press with a buddy of mine, and it was like, okay, we need a new book to go out there with. We're setting in small press, blah blah blah. Here's the game plan. And I was like, okay, this, it's kind of expensive to do this. How can we figure this out? And like a year or so later, friends of ours ran a Kickstarter for producing a film. And that was the first time I'd heard of Kickstarter, first time we ventured into it. We saw how it works. It was like, okay, let's figure this out. So I talked to them, figured out how they did it. Another friend of mine who's into role playing games, he had worked with a couple of companies where they were running Kickstarters to produce the games. So I picked their brains, got the information, and we decided, okay, let's try to do a Kickstarter. Let's try to actually do a color book, because up until this point, the first two books were black and white because that was like the most cost effective thing. And by this time, in like 2012, there was a few more print on demand printers, and we actually came across some advertising, I think, at a con for Print Ninja, and they were offering actual offset printing at a pretty reasonable price, but you had to order like 1,000 books.
Oh.
And it was like, well, let's run the Kickstarter to see if we can do that. And we did, and we learned a lot of lessons on doing that first Kickstarter. Like, I'd like to say we broke even, but I think we still ended up in the hole a little bit once shipping was all said and done.
Hmm.
We took notes, tried to figure out what to do. Um, we came back to it. We did a pinup book. I think was our second Kickstarter, and it was the same kind of thing. Learning curve, trying to figure out the ins and outs to make this thing work, get it figured out. And by the time we went to run the third Kickstarter, which let's see, that would have been 2018 or 2019. I can't remember off the top of my head, but we decided to do the fourth issue of our book. And by that time, we'd figured out a lot of ways to make things more cost effective, figure out the best way to promote it, and all the other things that go with it. And then we kind of got on a roll of like, all right, let's do this. Let's get the book out. We got that one done. Then the pandemic hit, and we were trying to ship out the books, and then also get ready to do our next one, which we did during the pandemic, because everybody at that point during the pandemic, everybody was trying to find a way to get their fix basically of comics and stuff, because a lot of stores were shut down, publishers were shut down, all the stuff that happened. So Kickstarter became very, very popular at that time. Um, and then we finished up our story arc that we've been working on for literally 20 years. Finished up with issue 5. We did a double sized issue 48 pages, wrapped up the story arc, kind of started to build into the new story arc, and we funded it very well. It worked out, and so it's like all those things like keep rolling in, and it's like, okay, we figured out how to make these things work for us, so we're doing the art book as a way to get the art book out there and kind of stay relevant, I guess is the best way to put it, on Kickstarter, like still having a presence, so that hopefully later this year we'll have a Kickstarter for the next issue. We're going to start a volume 2 issue 1 of the next set of Scarlet Hunter stories. So it's just kind of one of those things to like keep the ball rolling and try to stay fresh in people's memory, basically.
So you said that you kind of figured stuff out. What was it that you learned along the way from doing the first one to the second to the third, and so on and so forth?
One of the big things we learned was shipping. I can't remember on the first couple of Kickstarters how they figured shipping in. But we figured out we needed to better resource how we did our shipping, how we charged for it. We ended up signing up for accounts where we got discounts on shipping. We were like right around the time before the pandemic. I think we were introduced to Gemini mailers, and that made our lives way easier for packing up stuff and shipping it out. Um, and knowing also based on like when we get the Kickstarter done and when we think we're going to ship. Also knowing that usually January, February, the postal system ups their rates pretty much consistently every year. So it's like we kind of got to plan those things into what we're doing, and also figuring out better ways to work in the stretch goals so that we make sure we've got enough funding to cover the stretch goals. That was our first couple of campaigns of running it and trying to figure those out. Those kind of hurt us because we gave them away too soon, basically. And it was like, okay, we're paying more for these than we are anything else. But that was the little hiccups we needed to learn early on. And one of the other things that I've tried to do, and the last couple of them was still working on the book when we were running the Kickstarter, and still having to try to finish it up once the Kickstarter was done running. Just created like more of a workload. So like with this art book, everything is done. It's ready to go to print once everything's funded. We just got to send the files off to the printer, wait for the books to arrive, and then we start packing, shipping, doing all that mess. Towards, I think we put a ship date on there of like October or something like that. Our hope is to be able to be done before then, but we were trying to give ourselves some time because of everything else going on work wise and things like that, so that everybody hopefully will be waiting in anticipation, but it won't be that long of a wait. So it's one of the things I've tried to figure out, is like make sure that most of the stuff is done, ready to go, so that I'm not posting on social media nonstop and trying to work on a book and work on other things.
Yeah, because I've backed plenty of. I've run some Kickstarters in my time, and I've backed plenty of them, and there are there are several ones that are years past the point when they were supposed to be delivered for comics, and still sitting here waiting on them. And you see the updates, when the creator posts the update and it's like update 46, and you're like, shouldn't be having 46 updates.
Right. That's the thing. It's like we've definitely tried to figure out a best way of doing it and keep people in the loop, and let everybody know what's going on. And we were like a few months behind basically on our last one. So trying to keep that at a minimum of like, can we get it out much closer to our expected date rather than it going over.
Yeah. So what advice would you give to anyone out there that is interesting in publishing their own stuff? Because now, even with the indie stuff, there being so many indie presses and imprints that were around, like especially in the 90s, even today, like it's so much easier for someone that just wants to create their own book and say, I'm going to DIY and I'm going to do it myself. What advice would you give to somebody that's interested in doing that?
Um, dive into it. Do as much research as you can so you know what you're getting into. Um, like everything, whether it's finding out how much it's going to cost to maybe hire an artist, an inker, a letter, that kind of thing. Um, definitely look at hiring an editor of some sort. That we found very beneficial. Um, and even if it's just friends that that have done this, the more eyes you can get on something to catch like little, maybe a misspelled something or something looks out of place, get some more eyes on it so you're not doing the stuff essentially in a vacuum where you're just locked in and you're the only person paying attention to what you're doing. Get some realistic feedback. Um, research all your stuff of what it's going to cost to print, what it's going to cost to ship. If you want to dive in and do the crowdfunding, look at all the crowdfunding options that are out there. Find out what's best for you. There's I want to say maybe 6 different options out there anymore of different places you can go to do crowdfunding. And then once you've done all that figured out, then basically just do the work, make it happen. And that's easier said than done, but that's the way you get it out there is doing the struggle of whether it's writing and having somebody else draw the thing or you're writing and drawing it. It's just that's you want to make it happen. That's how you make it happen.
Yeah. So I saw on your website too, you do commissions. One thing I always like to ask artists is, what's the coolest commission request you've ever gotten to do, and where you see it and you're just like, wow, that's a really cool idea. And what's the weirdest, most bizarre one that you've ever gotten?
I don't know that I can say the most bizarre one that I've gotten, but the coolest. I don't know. I've done some pretty fun commissions over the years. One of the ones that seemed to get a lot of interest from everybody online, and I really dug the idea was, and I ended up doing it a couple times because people saw it and I was like, oh, I want to get one. Was a mashup of Spider-Man and Captain America.
Okay. Yeah, because
And
they did something like that recently with the What If Miles Morales books.
yeah. So this was I want to say, well, this was pre-pandemic when I did the commission,
Oh,
so it
okay.
was like 5-6 years ago, whatever. Was like the very first one I got asked to do. I did it on a sketch cover. I came up with my design of here's what I think Peter Parker wearing partial Spider-Man, partial Captain America costume would look like. And there were a few people that really dug it, that they wanted their own rendition of it. And then a friend of mine was like so excited about it. He's like, I need I'm trying to remember what we did. We did the Spider-Man Captain America mashup, and then there was I think a Green Lantern. I can't remember. And then he decided, okay, he's like, I want a Venom Yellow Lantern.
Hmm,
And so I did that one. That was a lot of
that's
fun to
cool.
try to come up with like mixing the two of those up. I think some of those that are like the mashup idea, the stuff that like is a little bit out of the ordinary, but not too far of a stretch out of the ordinary, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Those seem to be a little bit more fun. You get to play around and just come up with something on the spot essentially, and um, they seem to go over well. I have fun working on them. I think that adds to it that I'm having fun doing it. Um, as far as like the weirdest, like craziest stuff I've been asked to do, there's a couple I'd rather not mention that I got asked to do, but um, I do occasionally get kind of the oddball, like what am I trying to think of? Like somebody coming up and asking me to draw like them or a kid or something as a
Oh, yeah.
superhero or something like that. And some of those will get a little off the wall of like what they want, how they want it. Some of them are really cool ideas, but some of them is just kind of like a little out there for me. It's like, I don't know if I want to touch that one. It's nothing bad. It's just a little weird of like how they want to portray characters or whatever. But um, those are the tamer versions of the like the bizarre stuff I'll get asked to do.
So I think what you're telling us is what everybody can pretty much guess here what the what the weird requests are. It's usually every artist I ask, it's usually the same thing. Some of them are just like, yeah, I'm not going to draw this type of stuff. So
Yeah. Yeah, there's some I've definitely had to be like, yeah, no, I'm just not comfortable with that. And there's some where it's like, I'm okay with that, but we're gonna keep that under wraps.
yeah. So you've worked on your own creator-owned stuff on this Kickstarter stuff. You've done like I said, a lot of these pinups and coverage for independent stuff. If you had any company, Marvel, DC, Image, Dark Horse, whoever, if you had any company come to you and give you free reign and say, you pick whatever character or group of characters you want to work on, and you have free reign to do whatever you want with them, writing and art, who would you pick and what would you do with them?
I'd say probably my two top choices would be Spider-Man, because I've been a Spider-Man nut all my life. And then I would say also probably He-Man. What I would do, I, I can't think of like a specific like story idea or anything I would do like that, but I would do something where I just have fun with either title, whatever it is, and just do something that would be my own. Just put my spin on the stuff. Um, just just having the opportunity to play in that sandbox, just venture out. I would imagine I would do something to like basically fit everything in there I could, being that, kid playing in the toy box going, all right, let's break out every, villain that I can to make an appearance and
Yeah,
all the wild and crazy stuff that I could come up with. Um, Again, just something to have fun, just kind of dig in and, make it as fun as possible.
nice. Well, thank you for taking the time to sit down and talk with us. Again, you can see on the screen there. Check him out online at his website, SeanForney.com. There's the Kickstarter that's currently running. Again, it's called Heroes, Villains, and Cryptids Volume 1. So here's the link for it on the screen. I know it's a long link, so if you don't want to type all that in, and it's a long title, if you don't want to type that in on Kickstarter, go to his website. I've been on there. I looked on it. Right on the front page near the top, there's a link that you can click on, and it takes you right to the Kickstarter. It's got 9 more days left at this point. I just checked it, so you've done. Congratulations on once again hitting your funding goal, and and
Thank
pretty
you.
far exceeding it. And hopefully in the next few days of running it, that you'll be able to knock out a couple more of those stretch goals.
Thank you. Yeah, that's the goal, is hopefully get a few of those added in there. It's basically, extra fun stuff for everybody that's backed it. You're getting the bookmark right now, hopefully the book plate, hopefully some additional pages. So that's the hope, that all those things get added in there, so it's a little bit more bang for your buck, essentially.
Yeah. And then you said after this one done, a little bit farther down the road, you're going to start the next volume of the Scarlet Huntress
Yes.
series.
Yes, I'm working on the book because we're gonna have a like shorter version of it at Comic Con as an exclusive,
Mm-hmm.
and then we're gonna add a little bit of the story to it, and to hopefully launch Kickstarter hopefully in fall.
Awesome. All right. Well, everyone, again, check out his website, SeanForney.com. There's a lot of stuff to check out on there, a lot of stuff to see, and you'll be able to link to not just this Kickstarter, but get news and keep up to date with any future stuff he has going on. And while you are also online, make sure to check us out, as we always tell you, at thecodexstation.com. You got links to all of our socials. You got little bios and meet the team. There's a link to merch on there too. So check it out. Get some merch so that your money may become our money, that we then can use that money to buy comics like Sean's. So again, thank you for joining us tonight. All the best on your Kickstarter. Good luck with it, and good luck with the rest of them moving forward. And have a great weekend at C2E2 next week. Our man Sonny's going to be there looking for you, coming by to say hi.
thanks for putting all this together, and yeah, hopefully I'll see him there and get to say hi in person and all that.
All right, fantastic. So thank you everyone for joining us, and until next time, I will catch you by the spinner rack.